everybody. Welcome to the live talk, What Makes Us Happy. My name is Thomas Weißenfels, and I'm an account manager at the company INSITE, which is hopefully known by you, or most likely known by the most of you, as your provider of the Employee Assistance Program, EAP. And if you have questions today that we cannot include into this live talk because we don't have time in the end or something like that, or you have questions afterwards of the live talk and your employer provides you the Employee Assistance Program from us, then you can, or I would like to invite you to also use this EAP to ask your questions after this live talk. But today, I'm happy to be here as the moderator. And live talk means that this is not a scientific lecture or something like this. We are talking about the topic, and we want to. I would like to invite you to, participate today. And as already mentioned in the video before, when you want to share your own experiences or your thoughts on something with the other participants today, then I would like to invite you to use the chat to write whatever you want to share with the others. But if you want to ask questions that I should bring into this live talk and ask our expert, then I would like you to write your questions on the right side of your screen above the presentation mirror into this field questions for the speaker, because then I can see those questions and bring them into this live talk. Yeah. That's enough about me and how this live talk works. The most important person today is our expert that I brought, and I'm really happy and lucky to have you here today. Welcome, Dorothea.
Thank you very much, Thomas. A very kind introduction by you. I'm also very happy to be here to talk about an important topic on happiness. Who doesn't want to be happy? My name is Dorothea Kenny. I'm a health management consultant, and I've worked in corporate health management for the last 13 years. And the question I pursue and the question that I have, that I do trainings on and seminars and coachings and keynote speeches is on the question, what can we do in order to maintain our health and our well-being? What can we do? The world out there is getting more and more challenging and crazy, it seems. So what can we do in order to feel well, in order to maintain our health and our balance, to manage with all that is out there waiting for us? So I'm happy to be here and talk to you, Thomas, about this very interesting and I think quite up-to-date topic on happiness.
Yeah, Ben, with a view on this title of this live talk, there can arise a lot of questions, I think. And what I'm thinking about is that the question comes up to me, is happiness an inside job, or is happiness something you are either lucky to have or not? Or, yeah, and in this, because of those questions that can arise, today we want to explore the question of what it means to be lucky, and are we really responsible for our own happiness? What roles do external factors play, and what is happiness anyway? So I thought, or I already talked to you that before we get into this topic, that we would like to start with a small survey that you that we want to ask you the question. When you look at your life overall, how satisfied are you with your life on a scale from 0 to 10? You can find this poll when you look down, when you look on the right side of your screen. You see this presentation or slides, and I will, mark it for you so that you can find it. And we would like you to answer this questionnaire, this little poll. Yeah, already.
Let's see, how many answers have we got already?
We have already 12 answers, 18 now. So it takes a little time because when you answer, it takes a little time until we see that you already answered. So we will give you a minute or
There's a slide
few
overlay.
seconds. Yeah, there are 33% have answered yet. So if you cannot find it, I wanted to push it once more. So on the right side, there's a little questionnaire. And if you want to make it bigger, you can go with your cursor over this presentation slide, and then you can make it bigger on the right side of this little picture that you see. Yeah, 51% answered the poll.
We will give you one more minute.
And then I think you don't want to make it
Thomas,
too long.
What would your answer be? What would your answer be? Can use the time to talk about our own scores.
Right now, how satisfied I am?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm building up. I found a way to have a job in my life that I really liked. I just got married. I'm really on top of it. So right now
I'm pretty happy to me.
Yeah, I'm really happy right now. But I know a few months or a few weeks before, when the winter was a little bit darker yet, I wasn't that happy. But right now, when I know it's getting warmer again, I'm really satisfied. I'm going to share the results, I think.
Yes, so I'm curious. I'm curious.
Yeah, me too. So you can also see this results of the poll in your in this picture of the presentation, and we see that the most of us had 30% clicked on 7 on the scale, 28 on 8, 16% on 9, 2% clicked on 10 too, so like me. And then, but there's also numbers going down to 2. So what would you comment? What would you like to comment on those results?
Yeah, that is interesting to see. To give you a point of reference, I have a figure for you that shows us or tells us about the German average. Now, I don't actually know where you guys are all watching us from. This is an English live talk, but maybe you're still based in Germany, but you work through English, but maybe you're also sitting abroad. We don't know, unfortunately. But I only have a figure now for Germany. To give you this point of reference, there is an annual research on the general overall life satisfaction of Germans, and the score for 2023 is at 6.92. So that this corresponds with about 1/3 of the people here today, but even more people are happier than the German average. Congratulations. So whatever your personal score is, on average, it's round about roughly almost 7. That gives you an idea of where you are located based on this annual survey in Germany. Thank you very much for participating.
Yeah, thank you so much. Germans seem to be not that happy.
And just one question, if you want, I'd love to know where you are watching this live talk from at the moment. So please feel free to just write your current location in the chat. I'm curious. But we can continue, of course. We'll check on this later.
Okay, so I also brought some questions, as always, when we have a live talk by my own. So I would like to ask you the first question for today from my side. We are talking about happiness today, but what is happiness and what are we talking about there? Can you tell us a little bit more about this topic?
Yeah, because before we can start to talk about what can we do in order to maybe get happier or boost our happiness, it's important to understand what are we actually talking about. And it's not that simple to answer, because happiness is actually quite a subjective thing. Happiness can mean something completely different to me than it does to you. To give you an example, one person is totally happy when they are free to travel the world and be independent and not have any responsibility. That makes them happy. And another person, for their happiness, they need to have, they want to have their own house, they want to have a loving family, they want to live close to friends. a third person maybe is really happy when they can excel in their career. So what happiness means can be very, very individual. So before we answer the question on what happiness is, I'm interested to find out, what does happiness mean to you, the viewers here today? What are the moments that make you feel happy? You know, think about a Monday morning, think about a Saturday afternoon. When do you experience these moments of happiness?
Yeah, and please feel free to answer this question into the chat so that we can see your answers. And yeah, because this live stream is a little late on your screens.
Yeah.
It's a little late, so we are waiting for a minute for your answers.
Okay, because I can't see any answers. Is that the same with you, Thomas?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay. So all of you have rated 7, 8, or 9 on their general life satisfaction scale. What are the things that give you the sense of happiness and contentment? I hope we don't have a technical issue here.
It shouldn't be a technical issue because we are online and the chat is online, and we get an answer into the F&A field, so into the question for the speaker field. There's written, there are lots of answers in the chat. Okay.
Oh.
So this seems to be...
That's bizarre.
So that's really bizarre. So what we can do is, I'm trying to get out and come in again to make sure so that maybe we can see the chat then.
Well, then oh, now I can see, hold on, now I can see something. Oh no.
It's an F&A question, Mark. So it would be nice when you write everything that you want us to see, like also the answers for Dorothea now, into the questions for the speaker section, because we cannot see the chat.
That's bizarre. That'd be great.
Thank you so much for your help and participation.
Because that's unusual to not get any answers. So I figured it must be a technical hiccup at this point.
So it would be awesome if you simply write your answers into the questions for the speaker part on the right side over the slides. Yeah, there we go. So there's...
So Thomas, I need to rely on you because unfortunately I can't choose F&A.
Okay, so yeah, don't worry. I'll read something to you. So the answers are like nature, sports, and time with family, sunshine, friends, health, success, sharing good moments with friends, having time for oneself to rest, pursue hobbies, learn new things, financial security, freedom, healthiness, always having a trip planned. Oh, that's one for me too. When I know I made a positive impact on other people, when I'm satisfied with my work and with my family, quiet me time. So here's a lot of things. Then this is somebody who would define happiness as a mental and physical state of well-being and being able to feel grateful every day. And this person would not define happiness by how to be happy, but rather what we should feel. Okay,
really interesting. Because the answers are quite varied. You know, we've got a broad section of different ideas of what happiness means to you. And that basically is also in line with what we know about about happiness when we talk about how it's actually defined. To start off, you know, we wanted to define what is happiness, and it's not actually easy to find a single definition for happiness. It's not something that is easy to put an objective measurement over it, because it's highly individual. Every one of us has different things in their lives that are important to them, so they experience happiness also in a different way. So let's start let's settle at the beginning with the fact that happiness has a large subjective individual component to it. And when we look at the psychological view on happiness, maybe a philosopher will say something else than a psychologist, and maybe a doctor or a biologist will give you a different answer again. Today, we want to focus on the psychological side of happiness, because that's our core business. And modern happiness research talks about an overall happiness being an overall life satisfaction. And that's why at the beginning, we didn't ask you how happy do you feel. We asked you, what is your overall life satisfaction? Because from a psychological point of view, that is what determines a level of happiness. So how much do I like the life that I currently live in? And Thomas made it very clear that you love your life at the moment because so many components of it are in the right place and work for you. So let's think of happiness as an overall life satisfaction on the one hand. So being content with my life the way it is overall. That does not mean I don't have struggles. That does not mean that I don't have stress, but it means overall I enjoy living in my life. But happiness can also mean moments of happiness. You know, when you have a really fun night out with your friends and you were laughing your head off, or you went on a fantastic weekend trip. You know, these punctual moments of happiness are also part of the equation. So an overall life satisfaction and happiness, and also these special moments. So happiness can take on quite a subtle contentment, but it can also have these special exhilarating moments that make us feel good.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't want to ask too much about definitions about something. So I would go to my question about, do you have an answer to what do we know from research about what factors influence our feeling of happiness? Is there something that we can have a look on?
Yes, definitely. Now, as I said, it's not, happiness is difficult to put an objective measurement on it, and yet there is happiness research, and this one professor in particular, her name is Sonja Lubomirsky. She's been researching happiness, the psychology of happiness for over 30 years, and has done numerous studies and trying to figure out what does make us happy? What can we influence? Maybe what factors cannot we influence? What are the components that make up our happiness? So this is a very important question to start with. And the research has shown that everybody has kind of an individual, let's call it individual baseline of happiness. You know? So you, Thomas, have your individual baseline of overall life satisfaction, and I do. And what research has shown that, of course, it varies over a lifetime. You know, maybe something good happens. I get married, I get a child, I get a really good job, I get promoted. You know, my happiness can go up very steeply. Or something terrible happens to me. Maybe I have an accident. Maybe I lose a loved one. Maybe I get ill. So my happiness baseline can take a serious slump. And even though throughout our lives we have these ups and downs, which are totally normal, they're part of everyday life, research has shown that over time we all go back to our individual baseline of happiness. For example, people who've won the lottery, you know, they were very happy for the first few weeks and months, but over time their level of happiness went back down to the way before they had won the lottery. The same could be monitored people who experience maybe a loss or illness or tragedy, that over time, of course, initially there's a major slump, but over time they go back to their base level. So I think that's also important to understand, that we all have this individual base level, and this individual base level is influenced by several factors. And to answer your question now, the research, especially with twins, you know, because biologically, genetically identical twins, research with them has shown that quite a large component of our individual happiness baseline is genetic. So there is a large genetic component, but there's also a large component that we can influence. So that's the good and the bad news. Part of it is genetic, but there's also a big part that we can take an influence on. What was quite interesting were the results on external factors, like, we talked about accidents or winning the lottery or maybe getting a promotion. Happiness research has shown quite clearly that overall, in the long run, these factors play quite a small role in the long run.
And if you say that these external factors do not play such a big role
in the long run.
In the long
That's
run,
important.
and
long
our
run.
genetics play an important role.
Mm-hmm.
And you also said we can actively influence them. What
Yes.
can I actually do to actively influence in order to feel happier?
Let's talk about that with a focus, because the other stuff we can't, we can't change. That has happened to us or happens to us. So let's definitely focus on the aspects that we can influence. And the research of Sonia Lubomirsky has clearly shown there are a lot of things, and that's the good news. There's a lot of things that we can do in order to promote our own sense of happiness and contentment in our lives. And one aspect is very, very important. We talked about it in the beginning, that happiness is a very subjective and individual thing. So first of all, I need to figure out what makes me happy, what is important to me. So let's talk about our values here for a moment. Values is one of those things. Yeah, family is a value, being successful can be a value, being wealthy can be a value, having good friends and relationships can be a value. We've all seen lists with values before, but they're often quite abstract. In order for me to find out what really matters to me, it helps to look at my current life. Look at your current life, look at your job, look at the place where you live, look at the people you spend your time with, and you can ask yourself a couple of questions to understand why you do the things you do and why you've made the choices you've made, because they are often driven by our values on a subconscious level. We're not aware of them, but subconsciously we do certain things because our values are basically the drivers for our actions. So I have a couple of questions, or we have some questions prepared, and Thomas, I believe you're gonna put them in the chat. I hope that's gonna work now from a technical point of view. In any case, I'm gonna also say the questions if the option with the chat doesn't work. I hope it will.
Well, no, I cannot open the chat here. It is not working.
Okay. Then we'll have to work around this. We wanted to make it a little bit easier for you by doing copy and paste in the chat, but it seems from a technical point it's not possible. So keep your ears tuned in. Here are the questions. For example, how would you complete the following sentence? I live in the place where I live because. Do you live where you live because your partner lives there? Do you live there because you're near to family, close to nature? Why do you live where you live? If you answer that for yourself, it can help you to figure out what's really important to you. Is your choice of living place closer to your work because your career is more important to you, or is it more important to you to be close to family, for example? Second question, why did you choose your current job? What was the reason that you chose your current job? How would you answer that question for yourself? Maybe just to pay your bills, maybe because your job helps you to fulfill your professional passion. What is the reason that you chose your job? Third question is also an interesting one. Whose company do you enjoy? Which people do you like to surround yourself with, and why? The fourth one is also a good value detecting question. It's completely unacceptable to me when ... And the last one, in my family, in my relationship, or in my friendships, the most important thing to me is... So depending on your questions, these questions can help you to figure out what is really important to you in life. And that is an important basis for happiness, because the more I'm able to live my life based on my values, the happier I'm going to be. Give you my own example. I love being near nature. You know, that's really important to me, being outdoors in nature. And I lived in a big city right in the middle for a long time. That made me unhappy because I need nature in order to feel happiness. Somebody else needs to have 10 pubs near him because that's important to him, you know, meeting his friends for a beer and doing bar hopping. So when I know what's important to me and I can look at my life and see how much of these values actually find room in my life, the more that is in line with what's important to me, the happier I'm going to be. And that's where the individual component comes in, because the values can be quite different. So that's the first answer to your question, Thomas.
Yeah, and not only my questions are here, some participants also wrote questions into the chat already.
Huge.
So I would like to address them to you. One was to repeat how many percent of this feeling of happiness are genetic. If I remember right, it was 50, but the answer is for you.
Yeah, okay, but now this is very important. These figures are from Sonja Livermirsky, who's researched this for 30 years. And she very, very clearly states that those figures are an estimation based on a research, right? This is not that study ABC has shown that X%. That is important to know. Based on her research experience, she states, as an orientation, that roughly 50% is genetically based. This is the result from twin studies. Apparently only roughly 10% in the long run are influenced by external factors like my job, my career, my bank account, bank statement. And around 40%, she claims, is what we can influence. You know, this is to be considered like this.
Yeah, thank you very much for clearing it, for making that a little more clear, or clearing that up. Then here's another question. He has asked for a comment from your side. The question is that somebody saw a publication of the longest study of happiness, and the major predictor of happiness was, according to this study, the quality of human relationships that we have. And he was asked if you can have a comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is also confirmed by other research. And in fact, not only when it comes to happiness, but generally health and well-being, happiness, resilience, there is a strong correlation with the quality of our the relationships that we have. We are social beings, you know. Maybe some people need more people around them and others need less, but we all need a small group of people that can feel connected and close to. That's a very essential psychological need that we have. So that is, in fact, that is one of the answers when we look at what can we influence. If you look at the people in your life that are important to you, people that you enjoy spending time with, you know, your partner, your friends, your family, your children, your buddies, whatever, people you care about, people who care about you, and the best investment into your happiness and into your health and well-being that you can do is to nurture these relationships. So actively spending time with people who are close to you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Because some of you asked the question into the question for the speaker section, that I would, if I could write or share those 5 questions that we had earlier in the chat, I can answer to you if you write into this chat. It's a little around the corner, but I
Right.
can send those 5 questions to you. If you want to have them, just send me a question mark and I will send them to everybody who wants to have those 5 questions written. I will send them to you then as an answer. And
Thank you for your patience on technical hiccups.
We will deal with the situation as it comes. And here's another question that some people defend the thesis that happiness does not always fit with meaning and purpose in life. And in this theory, the belief is that what may motivate a human being to move forward may be painful and not necessarily makes this person happy. Do you have a comment on this?
Interesting. Very interesting question. Now, from stress research, we know that some people have so-called, now what's the term in English? Like inner stress drivers. I don't know if that's the correct translation into English, but they're basically convictions and beliefs that we usually establish when we were children. To give you an example, you have to work really hard to be the best. You have to be the best. You can't show weakness. You have to be perfect. You have to be loved and accepted by everyone. These are examples for these inner stress drivers that some people have. And they motivate you to do certain things, but they don't necessarily, you don't experience them as something that gives you happiness, because that's not actually in line what's really important to you. This is like a disturbance in your system based on these belief systems that we often develop in our childhood. So they can, they are motivating because without being aware of it, they drive our actions, but that they are not the things that have the quality and the potential to make us happy. I don't know if that answers the question. That's my best attempt at it.
It was asked for a comment. That's your comment. Thank you so much. And we also found a solution for the problem with the chat. A colleague of mine joined, and so I will send him what we want to share in the chat, and wonderful. Then he can share it for everyone out there. Well, so we find a solution for this problem. But I think it's more important that we work a little bit on what we can do to have an influence on our happiness and on our luck. And you told me before that you brought something today, and I should ask you about it.
Well, we've already talked about figuring out what's important to you, what is really, really important to you, and do a little check-in with your life. Is my work, is my private life, or my hobbies, is my spare time, is that in line what really is important to me, what makes me feel good and happy and content? That's the first one. We've already talked about nurturing relationships. And of course, I have a few more with me. This is all based on research of Sonja Lyubomirsky again, but also confirmed by other researchers, of course. And I decided to do the following. I'm not going to show them all. I'm going to let you pick a number, and then I'm going to reveal what the strategy is. But I actually need to take one out. Number 4 is nurturing relationships. We've already talked about that one, so I'll take that one away. You've got 4 left. Shoot, which number do you want?
Okay, last time I started with 1. This time I start with 5.
5.
We take the 5 on the right side,
5. Now this one is crossed out, meaning you shouldn't do this, or if you do this, you're not boosting happiness, but you're boosting unhappiness. Rumination means dwelling on negative thoughts. And a lot of people experience this. If you're under ongoing stress and pressure, you're tired, you go to bed at night, you want to sleep, and your head starts going crazy because there's negative thoughts that you dwell on. That's what we call rumination. That is a recipe for unhappiness. Also, comparison, that means social comparison. Oh, my colleague, he earns more, or he's more talented, or my boss likes him more. My friend, she's got the nicer house, or she's got the better car. When we start comparing ourselves to others is also, for research, a recipe for unhappiness. So if you want to boost your happiness, try and avoid these. Rumination, can be challenging. So at this point, also the reference to the EAP counseling services, if your company does offer that, that is an excellent topic to talk to a counselor about if you have a problem with dwelling on negative thoughts.
I can choose another one. So let's go with the one then, with the first one.
Okay. Number 1. Self-care. How well do you look after yourself? We're so busy looking after everybody else's needs, our children, our partner, our parents, maybe our siblings, our colleagues, our boss, our neighbor. But what about yourself? How well do you look after yourself? And when we talk about self-care, we talk about, do you allow yourself to take breaks? Do you allow yourself to rest? Do you get enough sleep? What do you eat? Do you drink enough? Do you do sports? What do you do in order to look after this machine of a body that we have? We demand so much of our body and mind, but what do we actually put in terms of fuel? So self-care is very, very essential for a content life or a happy life, to give yourself the priority. So where are you on your own agenda of priorities? And if you move yourself up a little bit further, it does not mean you're egoistical, but it means you're taking good care of yourself. And that is definitely one recipe for boosting happiness. Taking ourselves and our needs seriously and looking after them.
How about the others? Yeah, we can. I think we have enough time to go through all of them. So I already chose the one, but so the 3 is missing. So I take the 1 now.
Sorry, that was my mistake.
Don't worry, we will have the 1 now then.
I didn't check the figure. I'm sorry. That was already mentioned by one of you earlier in the chat when I asked what does happiness mean to you? Being grateful. Research is very clear on the positive aspects of being grateful. Being grateful, in general, about the good things that we have, being grateful to other people, and also expressing our thanks and our gratitude. And unfortunately, it's human nature that we tend to focus, and that's our biological heritage. Unfortunately, we pay more attention on negative things. We pay more attention on things that don't work. We pay more attention on stress, on bad headlines in the news, for example. We are more drawn by negative news rather than positive, and that's where we can start turning it around by making a decision to start looking at the things in our lives that I'm grateful for. Yeah, maybe I don't have the perfect partner, but hey, I'm so happy to have him by my side. Maybe I don't have the perfect kids, or maybe my job is not ideal, but start looking at things that you're grateful for, that you're happy about, that give you a sense of happiness and satisfaction, and shifting your attention away from what we don't have yet or can't do yet, and shifting your attention on things that are already there and that are good in our lives. So this is an important one.
Yeah, and having a perfect partner would be so boring. I think the best partner is the partner with the imperfections.
Exactly. What's perfect? We're not perfect either, so we can't expect it if we can't be it.
Yeah. Really. So, how about the last one?
Last one?
Yeah, the last one. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's of course, there's other aspects, but we've just picked a few important ones here. Flow activities. So what do I mean by a flow activity? Let me ask you a question, Thomas. Do you have a hobby or something, some activity where you forget about space and time, where you get completely absorbed in what you do?
Well, in the past it was playing tennis, but
okay.
Right now I'm sorry, I'm a little too busy to. I really have to work on this, finding more flow activities again. But
Okay.
maybe it's the walk in the park with my wife
Hmm.
at the end of the week, because when we
Hmm.
both have weekend, we started with a walk through the park, and this is really nice to get away from everything.
Now, for me, it's, for example, being in nature, I can just completely shut out everything, all the troubles and all the stress and the worries I may have. Once I'm out there and I see the trees and I go for a walk or a hike in the forest, I just forget everything else. And that's what I mean by flow activity. And this, again, is highly individual. Um, if you want, please write in the F&A section, what is your personal flow activity? What's the thing that you do where you, for a moment, you can shut out absolutely everything else? For some people, it's cooking. For some people, it's dancing. For some people, it's playing with the kids. If you have an activity like that and find time for this in a regular week, or at least on a regular basis, this is definitely a happiness booster. When we do something where we forget about everything else for a moment, we can zoom. It's basically like zooming ourselves out for a while, and these flow activities are known to boost happiness. But also a very important one.
Well, the first are coming in. So somebody wrote reading. One
Mm-hmm.
person is going to concerts. Well, music has a, for me
Mm-hmm.
too, when I feel, I can feel music. I think on a
Yeah.
concert, this is really nice that you can feel everything too. So
Yeah, you kind of get absorbed by the music. It's like reading as well. I get totally absorbed. It's like you're in the story and you're not in
yeah.
your current life anymore. That's these flow activities are brilliant health and happiness boosters. Have
So
you got
no,
something else?
no others are shared right now, but yeah, I think that the participants really got what you were saying, because it was so, yeah, you made nice pictures out of it. Somebody wrote, there's some more coming in. Somebody is drawing and painting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the things that are written here have to do with arts, most of it. So
Okay.
music, paintings,
Yeah.
and reading a book. And somebody's not seeing the chat fully. Yeah, that's because the only chat that we can follow is the questions to the speaker section, and you cannot see what is written there. So this is our technical problem today. So that's just why I'm reading the answers. And there's a cold shower.
Oh, wow.
That's another one. I didn't think about that.
No, I wouldn't have thought of that. It kind of makes my heart stop. Shows again how individual this is. And see, that's we can give you some impulses and we can tell you on what, based on research, works for a lot of people. But in the end, everybody has to figure out for themselves what are these activities and these moments that, put a smile or a happy smile or a content smile on their face, where you have that sense of, oh, that's like plugging in, that's my plugging myself into the electricity socket. It's so good for my health and my well-being. Of course, things like, let's not forget things like chocolate or potato chips. They can also make happy in the short run, maybe not in the long run when the trousers get too tight, but in the short run, some people can also gain happiness from particular foods.
Yeah, somebody wrote here, cooking, jujutsu, no social media, WhatsApp or phone.
Uh-huh.
So, and somebody wrote that there's a lot of more things written in the chat that we cannot see.
We can't see.
So,
This is so unfortunate.
but maybe maybe you have, because you said there's not only those five things that we can have a look on. Do you have some more things that we can do or see?
Yeah, I do have something else. There's one more thing which I forgot to mention earlier. Happiness being either this overall life satisfaction or these kind of particular moments of happiness, like when you play tennis and you spend an hour on the court and you're all sweating, you've got this grin on your face because you're totally pushed. That those exhilarating feelings of happiness, just to gain a better understanding of what happens on a physical, on a neurobiological level. So there's, in our brain, we have a so-called reward system. And whenever we do things that give us satisfaction, there's neurotransmitters like dopamine, like endorphins, like oxytocin. I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced in English. These neurotransmitters, they are basically the hormones that give us this good and happy feeling. Like when you do sports, for example, endorphins are released. And when we spend time outside and have sunshine, we spend time in nature, serotonin is released. And these hormones, the release of those hormones, are actually what give us that good and positive and content feeling in that moment. And we know that we can do certain activities that boost these hormones. So like doing sports, like going into nature, like meeting friends, like doing or watching something funny, listening to music, singing ourselves. They're all activities which are very likely to release these feel-good hormones. So that's where we can quite practically do something to get a positive feeling. And what's also, I have one final tip here, Thomas, but there's one thing that's also important to bear in mind, and we didn't talk about this beforehand. So, when we talk about happiness or happy moments, it's also important to bear in mind that it's not realistic to be wanting to be happy all the time. That wouldn't be fun. We're not designed to be walking around with a stupid grin all the time. Maybe you remember a couple freshly in love, they're very happy, but they're not good to anyone else during that time. So biologically, we're not designed to be in a state of happiness and exhilaration all the time. Life consists of ups and downs. And when we talk about happiness, when we talk about well-being, it's about having a good mix of difficult times, of challenging times, happy times, challenging times. Overall, when we find a good balance, when we find a good way of dealing with challenges that life throws at our feet, that's ultimately something that will boost our resilience, and that helps us also to deal better with stress and challenges in life. And that brings me to my last suggestion, which I have in store here, and that is a positive and constructive outlook and mindset on life in general. That's also a very important component, whether it comes to happiness or whether it comes to good stress management. We know from research on resilience that resilient people, they have generally a realistic / optimistic view on life. So they're not the kind of people who complain and give out and say, oh, this is bad and this is bad and they're good and the government is rubbish and my partner sucks. Some people walk around with a very negative view on the world, and that is also a recipe for unhappiness. So if we can cultivate and maybe look at our general outlook on life and our general mindset, a more positive and constructive outlook on life is very, very helpful. And again, if that's something that you struggle with, because it's not, you find it difficult to have that, please do not hesitate to contact the employee assistant.
Yeah, definitely. And I can really relate to what you said earlier, that, it is not realistic to want to be happy all the time. And when I think about this, I could really relate to this sentence. And sometimes it might make me unhappy when I try to be happy in moments that I'm not. Because sometimes, I'm not happy because something happens that makes me unhappy.
Yeah,
and this is pretty normal then.
It's normal, yeah.
Yeah, this is what I...
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and this is what I wanted to ask you. Is there a chance that we can chase happiness too much? Is that
of
possible?
course. You can put yourself under enormous pressure. If you're trying to be happy all the time, oh my goodness, that is a recipe for unhappiness if you pursue constant state of happiness. That it's not about a constant state of happiness. It's about I like this. I like this term of an overall life satisfaction. That means I have bad days. I have bad things that are happening in my life. I have arguments. I have stress. Maybe there's loss. Maybe there's separations. There's difficulties, and temporarily this will knock me out of sync. But overall, if I'm content and satisfied with the life because it's in line with what's important to me, I think that is a goal that we can strive towards, but not constant happiness. That's completely unrealistic. And by the way, you know those moments where we experience happiness, like when you play tennis, for example, would you have that same feeling of happiness if you played tennis every day? Probably not. I don't know. Have you tried that? Have you played tennis every day in the past? I don't know.
Yeah, I did.
Also... Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting question then.
But maybe there's one. Yeah, maybe there's one difference. I was a child, and my feeling is a lot that children are really motivated, and it's easier for children sometimes, or it seems to me for children easier to have a lot of fun with one thing. And from childhood on, I was playing every day, and later I did not play every day anymore. So maybe that changed too.
That was a bad example then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but what I meant is, the things that make us happy, if we had them all the time, they would become normal. That elated feeling of happiness is usually because it's in contrast to having a long day in the office where you spend the whole day sitting at your desk and going from one video call to the next. And then you go outside into the forest and you go for a run. The contrast is so big. So the feeling of happiness sometimes is in contrast to the rest of the day where we didn't feel that sense of contentment. And that's also generally, when you look at the way your life is from Monday to Friday, if you spend most of your day sitting in an office, usually if you pick an activity that's in complete contrast to what you do during the day, is something which will, which is a good counterbalance. So if you sit the whole day doing a physical activity is a good counterbalance. If you deliver parcels and you're on your feet the whole day anyway, maybe you spend more time sitting down in the evening and spending time with friends. So finding something that is in contrast to what you do the whole day is also a good idea.
Yeah, somebody else also wrote that this person is also happy when he or she plays tennis every day, and there was also a question because you were talking about this positive people, and directly in the chat they came up the question. Somebody wrote about toxic positivity, so looking on positivity in kind of a bad way. So the question is, can it be too much being positive? What is your opinion on that?
Absolutely. It's pretty much like anything, and anything we do over the top. If I'm a generous person, if that is over the top, it can turn into a negative attribution. Or if I watch my money carefully, that's, everybody would say that's a good thing. If I go over the top, maybe, then I don't spend money on anything anymore. So whenever we go into extremes in our behavior, it's about finding a good balance, but either extreme ends of the pole, and the same goes for positivity. Some people, as we said earlier, they put themselves under pressure in their pursuit for constant happiness. Same goes for, self-improvement. Everybody, people watching videos on how to improve their fitness, on how to improve their mindset, on how to improve their time management. And in essence, of course, it's a good thing to try and improve myself, but I can go completely over the top if it starts to dominate too much. So yeah, of course, we can overdo positive things as well, and they become less positive then. It's about finding a good balance, good middle way.
With a look on the time, I got one more question for you, because we were talking about factors, what we can have a look on, what we should clear maybe up or get clear about our own thoughts and feelings about our situation. do you have some tips for us in the end to how we can train ourselves to be happy? Is it possible to train that?
Well, it's possible to train it in terms of looking at what can you do, which of these possibilities that we looked at can you integrate into a typical week. So whether it's being grateful, for example, before you go to bed, look back the day, what am I grateful for today? What good things happened, even if they were small ones? Have I done my flow activity this week? What have I done in order to nurture my relationships? So yes, we can train happiness by looking at these factors that we can influence and checking our diary to see, do I make room? Do I make room for these things in my life that have the potential to boost my happiness? And that's definitely something we can do without going over the top, as we just discussed.
Yeah, thank you so much for this short answer. Before we finish this live talk,
Yes.
I would invite all the participants after the live talk. There will be a short questionnaire to maybe answer it to us. That would be awesome. And because, yeah, we had some technical issues today, we know that, but the time is coming to an end. And so I would like to give you the last or the final words, Dorothea, at this live talk. So is there anything that you would like to tell us about the questions, about the question today, what makes us happy?
Well, there is actually one thing I'd like to do with you, a little call to action towards the end. We've now looked at some ideas and possibilities of what you can influence, what you can do in order to boost your happiness. So if you have pen and paper near you, I invite you to take just a couple of seconds and write down in this moment on a piece of paper what within the next 48 hours, which of these ideas would you like to put into practice? Which one thing which has the potential to boost your happiness are you going to put into your calendar in the next 48 hours? So, because that's, the main thing or the most important thing is to always put our focus on things that we can influence. So many things happen in our lives that are outside of our control. We can't influence them. And if we focus too much on them, that's going to make us not only unhappy, but also very stressed. So by focusing on what we can do is a very important factor to not only happiness, but also contentment and general well-being. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you for all your answers and for all the information you gave us, and especially for this last task. I think it's awesome to have a plan to get more lucky or happy. This is awesome. It's like a training plan to get more happy.
So maybe to wrap it up, you started with, is happiness an inside job? Partially, yes. Partially it's an inside job, and let's focus on what we can do
and
on the factors that we can influence.
Here's one question to the end. Can you show all of the 5 again into the camera once, please? So maybe you can make a picture, because after this, I will have to end the live talk.
No. Oh, I don't have enough hands.
Being grateful, nurture relationships, and flow activities.
There's 3, and
self-care and not ruminating and comparing.
And here's one more.
A positive outlook and mindset. Thank you so much, and all the best for you. Good luck with
very much for joining
staying
us today.
Happy and getting even happier. Thank you.
Goodbye.